Thank you for joining another interview, this time with the legendary Anthony Partridge. So if you've come back from the Malle Mile at the weekend, you will have heard Anthony giving riders some helpful advice and guidance and a little bit of banter over the last 3 days racing. So it was a pleasure to interview Anthony. We spoke to Anthony about his time running a motorbike shop. He's now back in the UK. We'll look at Goblin Workshop, where I first found Anthony, and then we look at what he's got planned for the rest of the year. Some really good advice to learners about minimising your risks, especially early on in your riding career, and how to go about your everyday riding. So I really hope you enjoyed the interview. I really enjoyed meeting Anthony. I'm a big fan, and I hope you do too. Thank you so much for joining on the call. I really appreciate it. And I first saw you on Goblin Works, which I was obsessed with. So I watched all the episodes back to back, I think, in about 2 days. So my dad was watching it, so then I came across it, and I reached out to you, and you kindly got back to me. So I really appreciate that. It's really kind.
No worries. And if I obviously we have a bit more time than we usually have these days, but even though I'm still quite busy, I'm always up for trying to help our industry, everybody in the industry, trying to do good things. And you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with them, lending some time to something cool and be a part of something. And I quite like what you guys are doing with like the kind of, teaching, not so necessarily teaching, but like kind of, making it easier for new riders to kind of get involved and help them with, decisions and whatnot, and riding techniques and skills and tips and you name it. You know what I mean? If I can be part of that, then it's great.
Well, this is a big front, really, so I can learn loads of stuff. So I'm pretending to do it for other people, but actually I just need to learn loads. So.
Well, that's exactly what happened to me. The only reason I got into building motorcycles is because I wanted to ride cool bikes and I couldn't afford them. So it's just like my whole entire career has just been a facade to get me on the seat of a really cool motorcycle that I can't afford.
So I read your bits on your website and on the and other pieces as well, and it seems that you started out at about 11 years old with getting into motorbiking. So how did you get into it at that age?
So yeah, it's about I can't exactly remember the exact age, but it was around 9, 10, 11. My dad bought me a little bike, like it was a little 35cc. It wasn't really a bike. It was 2 wheels, set of handlebars, and like a bench seat with a little lawnmower engine. You'd have pull start to start it. So I had that for a little bit, but that was my first taste of like 2 wheels other than my BMX. I used to race BMXs, but my first taste of being able to do that and go somewhere without pedaling my ass off. And I was like, I'd be from my house to, what would usually take me 15 minutes pedaling to go see a friend was now like 2 minutes. And I'd be like at the door going, well, we're here, So it's that was my first taste into that. And we kind of broke that very quickly because it was terrible. And we used to, we put as many people on it as we possibly could to transport ourselves around. And then I kind of got the bug, I was like, okay. And then my neighbors, we moved into a new house and into a new neighborhood. My two neighbors, I had twins neighbors, and they had they bought they had, what did they have? They had a Yamaha RM, or not a Suzuki RM 125, and then another friend of theirs had a KX80, and I was just like, and they had these 2 dirt bikes, and they were kind of going out, and I was just like, I need to get one. And so I got a job. I think I had what did I do? I was at a paper route. I was delivering papers, and then I got a job. I can't remember what else I was doing. I was doing all sorts of like little odd jobs, cutting grass, you name it, anything around the neighborhood to save up as much money as I could to buy this KDX 80. My dad put in half the money. I had to save up the other half, and then I got my first kind of real motorcycle, and that was it. I was just hook, line, and sinker. I was just, you know, like before that it was skateboard. It was skateboard, and then, you know, as soon as I got a dirt bike, I was like, I was torn between the two. I'd skateboard for a bit, and then I'd take my skateboard to school. I'd come home, skateboard for a little bit, and then I'd dump the skateboard. And as soon as my neighbors were all back and everyone was done dinner, it'd be on the dirt bikes, and we'd be out in the field, and that was it. You know, I was born in here in England. I was born in Leicester. I was born actually, just around the corner from where I am right now. So I was born here, and then in '82 we migrated to Canada.
Okay.
And I grew up in Canada. I left Canada when I was 1999. I left Canada. Okay. So I spent 15 years growing up in Canada.
How was that? Because of parents or set up there, and why was that?
My parents. I guess in the early '80s there was a big like kind of industrial. I don't know what you call it, but they were Canada and America, Australia, all these developing kind of like industrial nations were looking for tradesmen, and England had a ton of, you know, machinists and tool and die makers, and you know, these industrial skilled guys. So my dad decided to immigrate to Canada. When I left Canada, I went to Spain. Yeah. I came here and then went to Spain. I ended up living in Spain for the last 20 years of my life. I ended up opening a motorcycle shop in Marbella. So I started a new business.
And I read up on around your time at that time with the motorbike shop, and please don't talk about this if you don't want to at all. But unfortunately, I know your friend died in Germany in an accident. I think reading from the book, and that must have been a difficult time to really pick yourself up and get back into motorbikes, or was it? How was that sort of time?
It was really tough because, like, Pete was my best friend. He's the guy I worked with at the shop, and the guy that went back to Germany. So like the plan was, like, when we both got fired from the shop that didn't have enough money to keep us. He went to Germany to go do some engine courses and kind of learn some new skills, because he was an old school kind of Harley mechanic, like old carbureted stuff. Yeah. And obviously everything now is kind of new. I don't know if the screen's changed a little bit. The sun came out in England and everything's changed. So Pete and I decided, okay, well, we're going to open our own shop. And so we're going to do it right. We're going to show this dude that fired us how to do it properly. And so he went to Germany and started doing this. He was over there for about 2 years. It's from 2000. So 2007 or 8 till 2010 when he died. So I was working in Gibraltar on ships. And so I was saving up money, buying tooling and machinery for our shop. He was there learning new things, and a phone call one day, and it was just that was it. I lost my best friend, lost my business partner. I lost, you know, like the only guy I used to ride my bike every day with, and the guy that taught me how to build bikes, taught me how to fix bikes. You know, and he was kind of like my big brother. And I kind of lost him overnight. And so it took me a little bit. I didn't know what to do. I was obviously, you know, beside myself with kind of what I'm going to do without my best friend, you know, business and all that shit aside. And, you know, I just like, and then it kind of, I went over, we had the funeral in Germany. So I was talking to his friends and figuring out what I was going to do, and everyone kind of knew we had these plans. And I was like, you know what, I need to kind of carry on with our plan. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have wanted me to stop and just go, oh, fuck it, I'll just go, do whatever. You know what I mean? So I kind of fought tooth and nail till I kind of opened the shop. It was in 2012. I found another business partner to go into business with and opened a shop in Marbella. And yeah, that was great. It was a huge shop, and it was kind of in his honor that we did that, or well, on my side, anyways.
Yeah.
And that kind of spiraled into what I do now. Everything kind of led from that moment. It was a stepping stone into me doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that you got back up and you went straight. It would have been so easy just to give up and not do anything, but that's incredible that you picked yourself back up to do that.
Yeah, it was. I'm not going to say it was. It definitely wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It was. It took a lot of, resilience. Like I've all my friends in Marbella at the time were, they're all like real estate guys or they all had a bit of money, and I was like the only broke guy out of all my friends, and I'm just like I was the youngest and I was the brokest out of them all. I didn't have a pot to piss in, and all I cared was if I had money for my gas and some beer money on the weekends, I was good. But I just had this pipe dream of opening this shop and doing this thing, and all my friends, that all have different businesses, were all, you'll never make money, you'll never make it happen, you never do this, and then 2012, I just never gave up, and then when it happened, it was a great thing to have. There's a film, like a short film on the internet of the opening party, and you see their faces when they walked in the door and saw the shop, how big it was, and like you walked in at nighttime, and we spent about £25,000 on our opening party. We flew a band over from the UK. We had Circus LA acts, women and these Argentinian acrobats swinging from ropes on the ceilings and running on the outside of the building, and it was absolutely mental. And to have all my friends show up and kind of look me in the face and wrap their arms around and give me a big hug and say, "You prick, you went out and did it." You know what I mean? Against kind of all odds, you went out and did what you said you were going to do, and it was a good moment. And it felt like I've never really felt proud of myself, but at that moment I kind of took a step back and said, you know what? Yeah, I think I did it. You know what I mean? I think I did something good. I did what I said I'm going to do. So there's a good sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, a nice tip of the cap to Pete's memory, I'm sure, as well, getting that off the ground. And then I suppose it's also a good takeaway lessons for someone like me getting into riding, that there's so many highs, it seems, that I speak to people about and motorcycling, and then a really contrasting lows, and it's just a dangerous sport.
I think riding motorcycles, yes, is dangerous. There's nothing between you and the rest of the world. You know what I mean? Like, if a truck hits you on a motorcycle, it's going to hit you. It's, you know what I mean? It's going to hit a part of your body, and there's no denying that. But when you get into riding motorcycles, it's just 9 times out of 10, any accident on a motorcycle is all rider error. And 9 times out of 10 out of those is somebody's going too fast. You know what I mean? And if you're going too fast, your reaction, your reaction times are slower. Everything comes at you faster. You don't have that. If you're riding like a dickhead through the middle of the city and a car pulls out in front of you, like they do all the time, you're gonna hit it. At some point, you're gonna get knocked off your bike. You know what I mean? And that's just so all you have. What you have to do is just minimize those risks every day. You know what I mean? And then, like when you get to a point in your riding career when you're very capable and you're very confident and you're at a point where you're, it's more of a kind of an extension of your body rather than you're trying to control this beast underneath you. I think then you can, not that you should let your guard down, but then you can kind of ride a bit freer and a bit, even though like still to this day, I ride like everybody's trying to kill me. And I'm confident that I'm not going to crash. You know what I mean? I calculate my risks a little bit different than somebody that is new to riding, I'm sure. But there's still risks involved. Every time you throw a leg over a bike, there's, you know what I mean? We can't control, everybody else. But you have to learn to ride and watch everybody else like they are gonna kill you. You know what I mean? If you're on a motorway and you've got 3 cars beside you, I'm always in the headspace of you try to look as far as you can, and then your peripheral, you kind of, okay, this guy's gonna he's gonna shoot into my lane and not indicate. The guy in front of me is gonna slam his brakes on. So you're always kind of going, okay, plan A is that way, plan B is that way. Here's my exit strategies. What happens if this happens? So you kind of, you've got all this stuff going on in your head, you know what I mean? But it's kind of, it becomes second nature once you've had enough experience and stuff, and, knock on wood. I haven't had, a bad crash other than on TV when I was doing a bit of flat track on a bike I shouldn't have been riding.
I saw that one. Yeah.
It was unfortunately TV only tells that much of the story.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of rest to go with that, and it just makes you look like a terrible rider. You know what I mean? I just look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, it is what it is. But there's more factors involved than me just kind of we're driving into a wall. But that's besides the point. But I don't think people should be scared of motorcycles because they're dangerous. You know what I mean? Driving a car is dangerous. Getting on an airplane is dangerous. Walking outside your door is dangerous these days. You know what I mean? Buying groceries in the supermarket is dangerous these days. You know what I mean? Like, it's a mad world we live in. But I think there's so many positives to riding motorcycles that outweigh the negatives for me. My mom was a nurse, and she hated the fact that I started riding motorcycles, and because they call them donor cycles. You know what I mean? It's like literally guys come in there and their bodies would go off and their parts would be farmed for donors for kidney transplants and heart transplants and things like that. And so my mom tried to kind of fear me out of it a little bit. But she kind of, she respects it, and she loves the fact of what I do. And she's quite proud of what I've done with my life, in regards to, making a career around motorcycles.
I think it's I was quite lucky with this. I mentioned in a previous interview that with COVID-19, I was going to get onto. I'm on a 125 at the moment, and I thought, I had a small amount of time riding a Magnum ZX50 with an American petrol tank when I was about 8 or 9 or something, and mopeds ever since. So I thought I'd get on to do my direct access and then get onto a bigger bike. But with COVID, it's forced me to get a 125 for like 3-4 months, and I'm looking back on it. I'm very glad that happened, because it's just enabled me to just get used to the bike. As you say, getting things as second nature rather than thinking about it. Using my feet in a different way and hands than driving. And I think I drive a motorbike like a car, which my dad says is safer than the other way around. And because he drives cars like he's on a motorbike, and that's not good. So,
I think I do as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's I definitely like I kind of learned a bit ass backwards, because in Canada my whole riding career was off-road, and kind of when I was on road it was kind of illegally because they were dirt bikes and they weren't meant for the road, and we kind of we'd ride down the road to get to the next field, and that was it. That was about it. So I never really rode a road bike in Canada. Other than when I'd nick my dad's bike when he was away. So I'm just turning my phone off here. And so it wasn't till Spain I got my first road bike, and it was like, it was a 1340 cc big Harley Davidson. But I'd always ridden, and I never had this kind of like learning to ride, because I never went and did my license till late in life either. And so I didn't have the kind of transition into it, or kind of like, okay, I'm going to go learn how to ride a motorcycle. I'm going to get my license.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, I knew how to ride a motorcycle, and I rode one kind of illegally until I got a license to ride one. So it was kind of, I kind of learned a bit backwards.
Yeah.
But I definitely like Helen. She's just she got her CBT last year, and then her big bike license, and so we put her on a little on a Mutt 250, and she loved it. You know what I mean? And I think it's a bit daunting to get on a big motorcycle for the first time. I think for new riders, and I think a lot of people. There's a lot of people that get on a big bike too soon. And I think, a lot of my bad habits came from riding a big bike probably before I learned enough more skills on a smaller bike.
I've just turned 40 and I'm not necessarily after speed. That's not really what I'm after. It's just more getting out and riding a bike, which I'm loving doing with the 125, but I just want something a bit bigger. I'm always searching for that next gear now. So
yeah. Well, I think I think I love small CC bikes. I'm about to build another 125, another Mutt, and as you know, I built one for my daughter on TV, and so she's kind of getting into it now, so, but I really enjoy small CC bikes. For me, it's not always about the size of the bike. It's about the size of the adventure kind of thing, and so like about 4 years ago, me and three of my friends, we did a trip from through Europe, and from Germany up through Scandinavia on 125s, and we if we were on big bikes and we were riding like hooligans and being lunatics like we would be if we were on big bikes, we definitely wouldn't have seen so much of the country. Because when you're tapped out, pinned, and you're doing 110, 120 kilometers an hour, but you know what I mean? So it's not great fun kind of being tapped, so you kind of roll around and you're doing 50, 60 and you're just cruising around, and it's kind of effortless, and they're really light, and they weren't hard to ride, and they didn't get tired on them. And they were just, we had so much fun ripping around Scandinavia on those bikes, and yeah, at the end of the day, we're like, it doesn't really matter what size bike you're riding. You know what I mean? It's about who you're with and what you're doing, and from point A to B, and how you want to do it. There's another thing with like kind of progression from a small bike into a big bike. I think there is. For me, I enjoy small bikes and I enjoy big bikes. I love to ride anything. I kind of ride like a bit of a hooligan when I'm by myself. Not usually if I'm with a bunch of people, or if I've got a passenger, I'll just ride quite safe. But I think like progressing into something bigger. I think the only downfall I see in small CC motorcycles is the response time, the throttle response time, and once you're on a big bike, if you're in a situation where you need to get out of that situation, like if you're here and you're going to get hit by a truck here, and you need to get the hell out of the way really quick, on a 125, not necessarily all the time, but sometimes you don't have that kind of instant, I can get out of this situation quick with it. You've got a bit of a slower reaction time, and you don't have much power on a 125, and if you're from a stop, if you're stood still at a light, at lights or something, and you try to kind of get out of the way of something, a smaller CC bike can kind of, hinder that situation. I think that's the only kind of downside that I can see out of a small bike, or if you're especially here in terrible weather, if you're on the motorway and you're behind a big truck and it's throwing shit in your face and you just want to get around it, you kind of drop it down a gear and you're like, hey, trying to get around this big truck, the kind of that's the only kind of downfalls I think with a smaller CC bike. You kind of, it takes longer to avoid, tricky situations.
I think there's also for me, it was I went to pick up my Varadero down in Poole, and the first trip I had on it was Poole to London, so I'm not allowed on the motorway, so I had to go on A roads and
Sorry, I'm just going to open this door.
There is.
I'm in a conservatory. That all you English love conservatories. I tell you what, when the sun comes out, they just turn into ovens.
So I had to pick up the bike from Poole and ride it back to London. And so navigating around what normally would take me in a car an hour and a half up the M3 to where I live in Teddington. But I had to sort of S-shape round Salisbury and then into sort of Woking and then on the A3. But on a 125 at my weight, like 105 kilos, getting up a hill was just embarrassing. So it was fine. It's fine on the flat.
30 miles an hour.
Yeah, on the flat and on downhill, no problem. I could get to 60, 70, no problem off the A3. But up a hill, it just like drops off, and I'm doing 30 up a hill, and that's not great. But yeah.
That is the good thing about once you go from that bike onto, say, even like a 350 or a 500, where you're going up that hill, you're just like, wow, and that part of it is taken away. You know what I mean? You no longer have that bogged down lack of power when you need it.
So how did after your sort of your shop in Spain, and how did the Goblin Workshop come about for you? How did that turn up?
It was actually Dutch from the bike shed, the boys behind you there. So Dutch was a friend of mine, or he's still a friend of mine, but he at that time he was a friend of mine for, I don't know, I'd known Dutch probably about 5 years since then. And I just got this email from Dutch, and it just said, look out for an email from Discovery Channel. And that's all it said. And I'm like, do you want to elaborate on that? You want to tell me something? You know what I mean? I'm like, I sent him a big long email asking a million questions. And his response to that email was, fame and fortune, buddy, fame and fortune. And that was his reply to that. And I was just like, so I fired back another 100 questions. I'm like, what's going on? Tried ringing him, tried texting him. He just purposely, he purposely didn't answer my phone calls and left me kind of stew in what that meant. You know what I mean? Dutch is quite funny like that. And then it was a couple of weeks later, he actually answered the phone and I spoke to him. We're like, what's that all about? He's like, oh, I just some people from Discovery Channel were in here and they were asking if I knew anybody that could do this job, like do this TV show. And he's like, I put you forward right away because I just think you're a clown, and you'd be good on TV. And plus, he knew that I'd literally a few months before that just left my shop. I kind of, me and my business partner fell out, and I'd made a move because I was in touch with the bike shed because they were just opening the bike shed, and I was just kind of figuring out, should I come to London, open a shop in London, and do something here. So me and Dutch were in chats about all sorts of different things. He was trying to help me out with that in that regard. And he's like, well, most builders are quite busy, and they, you know what I mean? If they're any good, they have a shop and they have this, and no one can really just kind of stop, close the doors on their shop and go do a TV show at that point that we knew. And he's like, so, you're perfect for it. You're looking for something to do. They need a bike builder that's got some skills and can be decent on TV. So they just, they called me up a few months later and said, hey, do you want to do this TV show? And I just said, yeah, why not? Let's, what do I got to lose,
And is it something that's going to be continued? Because it's, I haven't seen an episode in a while. Is it going to carry on, do you think?
Well, so we were supposed to start filming the next season in March, but obviously with COVID and all that, everything's TV's kind of been kind of canceled. So we don't know what the plan is. We have no idea. No one's been talking to anybody. The last time I heard, TV presenters were allowed to film for 15 minutes with no face mask per day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's no good to man nor beast. So I think they're kind of waiting to the lockdown kind of eases up and everybody kind of can go back to work a bit more. But yeah, we don't know. Me and Helen are working on some cool projects. So we're going to do some cool stuff. We're going to do some a bit more online stuff.
There's a custom bike builders from where I'm down in Poole called the S-Bomb. I don't know if you've heard of the S-Bomb or been there, or and it was on they had a pilot show, 2 episodes I think on Channel 4 earlier this year, although it was under a different name and rather than S-Bomb, and they created a motorbike for an ex-military guy that had lost a.
Actually, yeah, I think I saw that, the guy that lost his leg or something like that, correct?
Yeah, so that's like 200 meters from where I grew up down in Poole, and it's right on the water.
Okay.
It's a cool little place. If you
they seem like really nice guys.
Yeah, really good. And I'm hoping they bring that back as well. But I know they were trying to get some momentum about it, so hopefully they get that. I think we're missing that sort
we
of.
need more bikes on TV. There's a massive lack of motorcycles on TV. And it's funny. It's really weird because like. Our show, it's they see it as predominantly a car show. I see it as a bike, and I see it almost about 60-40. They see it kind of 80-20. And I think the viewers don't see it as an 80-20. I think they see it as there's always a bike and a car, and there's always it's kind of a bit of everything. But like. If you look at the kind of the stuff on TV, we've got Henry Cole kind of does his thing, and then you've got American Chopper, and that's literally about it. Everything else is kind of if you go on Motor Trend or any of these channels, they have some like the motorcycle content is terrible. It's a lot of it's like this kind of like selfie stick kind of video. Hey, I'm going to go test this bike, or I'm going to do this, or you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a shame because I think, there is enough of us out there that appreciate motorcycles enough to warrant having a proper TV show about it. Like American Chopper, we all watch it because we love motorcycles, but if we look at the bikes, we're like, they're terrible. You know what I mean? Like, it's great if you have a big long straight road in America, but anywhere else in the world you can't ride those motorcycles.
And actually, I think there's
and they don't relate to anybody else other than people that love kind of choppers. Where I build motorcycles to ride, and I build them, with manufacturers, and we kind of try to do collaborations so we can kind of get more people on different bikes and get the word out about how cool this model is or that model, and show people that, hey, you can take this bike and turn it into this, and you can take any bike and cut it up and make something cool out of it, rather than it doesn't have to be these crazy one-off frame up builds. And it's just I think in the industry they do these kind of tests, they do these focus groups, and so they'll get 100 people. Usually probably from an office building where they're doing the test group, and they're like, okay, we need 100 of you to sit in this room and watch this film. You get 2 buttons, and they ask you questions. Do you like this or do you like that? And it's like, tap that button, tap that button. So every time they're watching the show, if they don't like something, they tap a button. If they like something, they tap a button. So it's like they're constantly just tapping away at these things and doing these focus groups. But like, they're not generally, the normal human beings. They're, what I mean? They might all be like tech media people that work in an office, and none of them like cars or bikes, and they're in this focus group about a show about cars and bikes. You know what I mean? So they don't have they didn't walk down the street and just go, okay, you and you and you, and just pick random people, I think, and so in testing, car shows, always get better reviews than bike shows, because I guess their theory is that everybody in the world can ride a car, drive a car at the age of 16 or 17 or 18, depending on what country you're in, and everybody, most adults in the world or teenagers drive a car, so the market is a lot bigger, which essentially it is. That's true. There's some truth to that, but I don't think generally that guys that love girls, kids, you name it. Everybody who loves cool custom cars, if you're going to watch a custom car show, then you're going to appreciate a custom bike as well. You know what I mean? Even if you don't ride one. So, and same vice versa. If you're a custom bike guy or you love motorcycles and there's a cool car show on that does cool stuff, we're going to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because when I search for Goblin Works on my Sky TV and I read the description about what's coming up in the show, it doesn't
nothing about bikes.
Nothing about the bike. So I take a chance and see what you're doing on the bit, and then it says at the start, I'm like, okay, well, I'm engaged now, so I'm going to watch it all. But I wouldn't know that unless I click through and start watching it. I wouldn't know it from the description.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's really weird. I wish they kind of, and those thumbnails, like some of the photos they put on those fun thumbnails too are from like a photo that I took on my iPhone. You know, of us just goofing around or whatever. You're like, how did they even get these photos? You know, some of these photos are like, how'd they just arrive? You'd think a lot of stuff in TV doesn't make sense to me.
What are the custom jobs that I really like? I've got the picture on my screen now in front of me. Is the TW Steel bike, which it looked awesome. Was that as fun to do as it looks? It looks great.
To build the bike, it was absolutely mental, because like I designed the bike and then I took the sketches to a company in where were they? They were way up north.
Okay.
And these guys totally let me down. So it was an absolute nightmare. They were supposed to make all this composite bodywork, and I was going to get molds made, and we were going to kind of make kits and all sorts of stuff. And then I just got it was an absolute nightmare to get it from point A to point B. But when it was done, the bike was absolutely phenomenal, and it was such an awesome bike to ride. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be a kit, because I wanted to make it so I could sell those. So if you had an MT10, you could buy that kit and make your bike look like that.
That's cool.
Just by buying my kit. But because of time restrictions and getting let down by guys that were helping me try to develop this kit, it turned into a one-off. But it's a hell of a one-off, and it was really, really fun bike. It was absolutely mental. The ride, fourth gear wheelies, is 210 brake horsepower to the back wheel, and it made a hell of a great sound. It was a proper weapon, that.
And what's the your bike of choice at the moment? I saw you bobbing around on a Harley that you're doing possibly, or your custom you're doing at the minute.
I've got my Harley kind of. It's kind of like this dystopian Mad Max kind of black and pink Harley. I love that bike. I'll probably never sell that one. I want to keep that one. But my bike of choice at the moment is my Ducati. I've got the Ducati Scrambler that I built for Ducati.
Yeah.
So I've done a bunch of different things with Ducati with that bike. I've raced it a few times with them, and so I've just kind of kept on to that one, and I've just kind of keep doing little bits and pieces to it, and it's the only bike I really have insured and taxed, and it's on the road really. So that's my kind of bike of choice, and it's just so epically fun to ride. I just love riding that bike.
I think I was talking to the British motorbiker on an interview the other week, and he has a Ducati Scrambler, but he has the 400, which is I didn't even know they did a 400.
Do they have a 400?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so but it sounds, with the right exhaust, it sounds like the bigger one anyway. So I did.
Now that I don't believe you, I'm just gonna have to Google that, because
399cc,
6,700 pounds. Huh.
Yeah, 41 horsepower, 399cc.
Wow, that slipped through the radar. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I thought again. I thought that would be a prime sort of. I'm on a 125 bike. There's a prime sort of second bike for someone, and it's. Yeah, I hardly ever hear about it.
Huh. I'm gonna have to make a phone call to Ducati. I want to have a go on one. I want to see what they're like. Because Helen needs a new bike. So we're gonna. I'm probably gonna build Helen a new mutt. but yeah, who knows? I know she because she really liked the 800 Scrambler. She wanted to get a buddy of mine, Roland. He did a design that kind of Ducati have rolled out their RSD kind of it's kind of yellow, brown, and white. Had a retro kind of paint job to it.
Yeah. And so in terms of, so that's on, so Goblin Works on hold a little bit. You're probably doing your own thing with sponsors and at home. What's the next big thing for you on the radar that you can talk about this year? That's hopefully when restrictions start to ease.
Well, this year, to be fair, like everything is kind of, who knows what's going on. I've got about 15 different irons in the fire. I'm just trying to figure out which one's going to kind of come off, really. So, and they're all kind of travel dependent. Like this thing I want to do with KTM. There's, there's this big adventure thing we want to do. Like, want to travel across 7 continents. Mm-hmm. Kind of a similar kind of thing to what Charlie and Ewan did.
Yeah.
But there's kind of 4 of us, and we want to do it a little bit different, and kind of go from point A to point B in a different way. Mm-hmm. We want to cross all 7 continents on bikes, and that's kind of another project we're kind of working on. But again, we don't know when we can travel and when we can get visas into countries, and you know.
Yeah.
And it's all budget dependent as well, because like a lot of companies have kind of, or motorcycle companies are struggling. Like Triumph just laid off 400 and some odd people. 280 of those were in the UK. So there's tough times everywhere. So we're just trying to figure out, we're kind of trying to get the lay of the land as it kind of comes at us. So I've got a bunch of projects on the go, and I'm sure one of them will be better than the other, and it'll start sooner than something else. We're just kind of just waiting to see what happens really with this whole COVID thing.
And do you have a setup so at home or whatever that you do customs yourself still, or does that still have to get commission for that?
Like the plan was, me and Helen were going to move to California. So we were supposed, by the end of kind of 2020, our plan was to be already living in California. Moved all our stuff, all our machines, tools, everything over there, and kind of set up shop in California. So this has kind of put a hold on that. So what we've done now, we've just gone and I'm just in the midst of trying to rent a house now in the UK, with a workshop and a house all kind of at one. Nice. So we can then get back to work on our own project, because we've got to build we're building Helen a race car at the moment. We're building her an MX-5, like a Gymkhana. She wants to start racing Gymkhana. Mm-hmm. So we're going to build her this kind of drift MX-5. So we've got that on the go. We've got another BMW project. We've got I've got like a project I'm going to do for Mutt. I've got a Yamaha, the one I built on the show that didn't get finished. So I've got to still finish that for Yamaha, and then hopefully there'll be some season left that we can actually go out and race at. So I've got to finish that bike. I've got lots of bike projects and car projects to do, but we just haven't had the space. Helen's been up in Brighton, and since we've finished Goblin. So I went over to Spain for 6 weeks, and I was sorting out all my stuff there. And so I got back, and we've been on lockdown since. So it's kind of all kind of imploded. And, now we figure, okay, well, because of COVID, we don't know when the world's going to be open up to, working full tilt again, and everything traveling and without quarantine, and when actually things. So we thought, okay, well, what we'll do, we'll spend a year here in the UK. We'll get a bunch of our projects that we've been trying to get done finished. And then we'll just see what pops up. If TV call us up and say, hey, we're ready to go, then we'll do that. If, this YouTube thing that we're working on at the moment, that kind of takes off and it gets more involved, then we'll carry on doing that. If, the Amazon and traveling the 7 continents on bikes picks up, then I'll do whatever comes off first. I'll do that, you know what I mean? And then just kind of, plot everything else around that. I'll just kind of, okay. Cause I know what's going to happen, which always happens, is everything's going to come off at once. It's going to be like the whole kind of us riding around the world they're going to want to do that right away. Then they're going to call us Goblin. They want to start filming that. And then all of a sudden the YouTube thing and sponsors are going to go, yeah, we want you to do this and this and that. And then all of a sudden we're going to have like 5 things we got to do all at the same time.
Yeah.
So hopefully one of them, crosses the finish line first, and I can get stuck in with that. And then anything else that comes after that, I can go, okay, well, yes, I can do that, but it's going to have to be scheduled in like this and this and that. And then I can start making a schedule with all the things going on. Because right now I'm just scheduling everything as soon as possible, and whatever comes off first comes off first. So
it kind of feels like the YouTube thing is a really good way to go at the minute. I mean, I, for one, I spend more time on YouTube watching stuff than I probably do on normal TV at the moment. And simply the benefit of that from a marketing perspective and a content perspective is that if you grow your own YouTube channel, that's your following forever, right? So
exactly, and then you're kind of like the master of your own destiny. So we've wanted to do it for a while, but we've just been so busy with when you're filming TV, it consumes your life. It's like literally it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, other than when you're sleeping for like 4 hours a night. Other than that, you are consumed by it. No friends, no family, no nothing. You don't go out. You kind of eat, sleep, work in the TV. So kind of, once you get out of there, it's kind of, I'm still just now getting back to normal life. You know what I mean? I'm like, my sleep pattern is still out of whack. I get like 3-4 hours of sleep a night.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm just trying to eat. I'm starting to train now. I'm putting weight back on. I was like super skinny when I finished because, you just don't have time to eat properly. And you literally let yourself completely go. And you're just so focused in work that everything else is just kind of, there's no time for it because it's like, we got to do this. And tomorrow we have to get this done. And in 2 days time, that has to be done. And so it's just this constant, craziness.
Well, whatever you do next, I can't wait for you to get back on TV. It seems to have followed you throughout your whole career, some sort of TV thing. And
no, it's so weird how it kind of, that's what happened unintentionally. And all my mates, like, they kind of all make fun of me, like, oh, you're a big TV star, and I'm just like, and they're like, yeah, but you love it. And I'm like, that wasn't my intention. I never set out to go be on TV. That was definitely never one of my goals. It just kind of happened, and turns out that people kind of like watching me on TV. I still find it very awkward being on TV. I still, I don't feel like I'm myself, like, especially with TV, like, and Discovery Channel is Discovery Channel, and we have like our audience. So, and I'm not the most PC guy on a day-to-day basis. So it's for me, it's very tough because I'm a very how do you say I'm a very kind of a PC version of myself when I'm on TV. Even when I'm like doing this, like, if we weren't recording this and it wasn't going out, the context and the language would be a little bit more
sure.
Colorful, I'm sure. But I'm kind of, but again, you know what I mean? It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's kind of changed me a little bit in the way that I'm kind of a lot more reserved. Then, like, if we go out to the pub, that's the real me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We'll have a beer and we'll kind of chat.
Well, I might get to see that on the Malle Rally if you end up going there.
Well, yeah, exactly. At the Malle Mile or the Malle Rally, it's definitely, when I go to events, you know what I mean? It's kind of, all my hats are off. There's no work. It's just me, bikes, friends, beers, fun. It's all about having fun. And that's kind of the ethos of my life. The only reason I've got into motorcycles is, again, because I get to ride them and because I thought it was fun, and my whole career has been about trying to have as much fun and bring as much joy to myself and my friends, my family, and everybody around me as possible. And I think it's just motorcycles are a good catalyst for fun.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's very cool, and that's one of the reasons why I set this up. Really, is I mean, I'm no photographer or filmmaker, but I'm learning quickly, and it's been really fun process learning photography and film side as well as getting into something that I really want to do. The only reason I got into motorbiking was at this age was to go out with my dad and my brother to do something once a year with those guys, just to. So
Awesome.
yeah, so my dad's been a rider since he was like 12 years old, and I've never really got into it until now. So um, he said he probably won't even talk to me until I get like proper like riding stuff, you know. So he's that sort of guy.
It's quite. I remember, like, I've only actually ridden with my father once. He's always had a bike, since I can remember. But I left Canada at 19, or so, no, at 20, 21. I left Canada, and I never rode on the street, so I never had a license when I left Canada. So I never really got to ride with my dad. And then, I'd lived my whole life over here, and then when my dad had come over here, we'd always do other things, or we'd be with family, and it wasn't. So it wasn't until I opened my shop in Spain that my whole family came over and surprised me.
Oh, that's cool.
They all flew over for the opening party and surprised me. And so what I did, I organized a big ride out for, our close friends that flew over from all over the world, and my family. So it was like me, my dad, my mom's wife, my sister, my sister's boyfriend, and all my best mates. And so I lent my dad one of my bikes, and all of us kind of rode together. It was absolutely fabulous. I wish
cool.
I could ride more with my old man. It'd be great.
Yeah,
it's a good feeling.
Looking forward to it, and thank you for spending time with me today. And we've got some good lessons, takeaways for me as well, especially on regardless of size of bike and enjoying the bike that's suitable. And any big advice for learners that you think that especially in this day and age, it's quite confusing with like e-bikes just on the periphery as well, an inordinate amount of power, and people looking at that.
Yeah, I think especially with e-bikes, I personally would definitely start with something with a motor, and one. I think it's good to kind of get your head around the mechanics a little bit as well, because like if you buy an electric bike, you're not going to do anything to it. You're going to take it once every so often to the shop, and they're going to do everything to it. And then like a mechanical bike, as you know what I mean. You'll kind of get to a point where you're like, oh, I want to change my brake pads, or you know what I mean. You get into it because you're checking your oil, you check, you're filling it up, you're kind of washing it, you're kind of looking at how things work, you know what I mean? And with an e-bike, I think they're so kind of mind-boggling, even to me. Like I look at one and go, I don't know, what am I going to do with that? I can change the brakes and the wheels and the parts, but like the rest of it mechanically, I have no idea. Electronics.
I think it definitely makes it more real when you start looking at the basic maintenance of the bike. You feel more attached to the road and the bike, and suddenly the danger aspects become more apparent to you as well.
And I think if you're new to riding, I think electric bikes can be a lot more dangerous, because I don't know if you've ridden one yet.
No.
But they are absolute weapons. Like, I mean, if you look straight ahead and you go, okay, I want to go there, and you crack the throttle, you're there. You know what I mean? It's instant head snapping kind of torque. You got 100% of your horsepower in a split second. You know what I mean? You got all your torque, is right there.
Right.
Where no matter how powerful your bike is, you still got that little bit of lag between you and the throttle and the engine and the combustion, and you know what I mean. There's a bit, and you can kind of like you can let off, and you're like, okay, no, that was a bit too much. You know what I mean? You can kind of control it a bit easier with an electric bike. You give it a whole handful of gas. And even if you let off, the motor's got so much torque, it's just going to launch you anyways. You know what I mean? Until that momentum kind of stops. So I think, yeah, stick to okay, maybe like these kind of like electric moped things are a little bit different. Like the Super 73s, they're not really. I wouldn't call them motorcycles. They're like a little scooter, really moped thing. They're a little bit different, but I think. Get on a bike, get on a small CC bike, and there's so many so many companies out there like Mutt and Harold and Cavallero and all these different brands that are doing really cool bikes. Like look, Ducati now with the 400 and like, you know, the just kind of just take it one step at a time. Really, you know, don't go balls to the wall. And don't buy a 1,000cc motorcycle. That is that if that's my one piece of advice to anybody going to buy a motorcycle, don't go buy a Fireblade or a GSXR 1000. Anything 1,000cc, stay the hell away from. Even I don't want one. You know what I mean? Because I find that with 1,000cc motorcycles, one, they're okay. I ride an 1100 Scrambler, but that's a totally different kettle of fish. It's not it's not a super bike, you know. But there's so many people that just get their license and go buy a super bike, and those people are the people you see in morgues. You know what I mean, or in jail. There's two places to go with those bikes if you're a newbie. You know what I mean? And it's and they don't end well usually. You know what I mean? Because the thing is, nobody other than a racer needs a 1,000cc motorcycle, especially not on the road. You can't use that bike. And 90%, 99, probably 99.9% of all the people that go out and buy a 1,000cc super bike can't ride it. You know what I mean? Even that they take it to a track and they've got all the gear, and I'm out there on a 600 just smoking past them, and they can't even keep up. You know what I mean? You're like, why are you on a 1,000cc bike? You can't ride it. My ethos is if you're gonna ride on track and if you want to race and if you want or just want to do track days and you want to go out there and get better and you want to ride a bike properly, buy a 600, right? And go out there and ride that and get to the point where you need more bike and let the bike decide that you need a bigger bike. You know, like if you're out there on a 600 and you're on the edge of the tire on every corner and you're just wringing the neck out of that bike, trying to go faster and faster. And you're just like, I can't get any faster on this bike. Then it's time to move to 1,000cc.
Yeah.
In my opinion. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Some people, I think, you know, some people just, you know, they want a big bike and it's kind of it's a dream of theirs. Great, go do it. But just be wary. And, you know, I think kind of all bikes have a purpose. And I think, you know, the super bikes are by far the epitome of riding a motorcycle. You know what I mean? If you get out on a track and you experience going around a track and doing 200 miles an hour and, you know, tipping into a corner at 100 and something miles an hour and getting your head this far from the ground, there is no feeling like that. You know what I mean? It's like nirvana of riding motorcycles. And I wish that everybody could go out and try that, because, you know, whether you're a novice rider or not, once you get to a certain point, go do a track day. Get out there, do a track day and learn, like do a weekend, do a track day school, go out there and spend, because what it'll progress your riding on the street. And you'll unlearn all these little bad habits, and it'll kind of slow down your street riding as well, because you'll go, hold on a minute. You know, I know how to take a corner. I'm looking for, because when you're on a racetrack, you're looking for braking markers. You're looking for tipping points where you can, your apexes and your exit points. And then once you get on the road and you've kind of learned those skills, those kind of race skills, you kind of put them into everyday use as well. You know what I mean? And you kind of you start looking at corners differently. You start looking at, how fast you're going into a corner, you know, in a city and things like that. You know that you can take this line. You're better off on your lane discipline. You know, I should be on the right of my lane, or I should be in the center of my lane now, or on the left of my lane. You know, you kind of learn those disciplines. And I think it's a great thing to do for anybody that rides, that's learning how to ride and enduro, ride off road, fall off the bike, crash, learn what it feels like to whack your head off a tree. You know, because, you know, the more you fall off the bike and the more kind of, you know, you hammer the front brake, and you lock up the front and you crash, and all these skills you need to learn, and you can translate all that to the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So off-road riding and track riding are probably two of the best disciplines you can go out there and learn. And once you kind of learn those skills, you know, it will make your riding a hell of a lot more better and confident and safe.
I was booked on an off-road weekend in Wales before COVID hit. I was really looking forward to that. Just like 3 days in trails outside in the Brecon Beacons, I think it was. Really
it's awesome.
Yeah.
There's nothing like playing in the mud with your friends on bikes.
Anthony, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. You've given me loads of time, and I really appreciate it. And
no worries, mate.
And I know it's difficult to balance all your projects at the minute, so I really appreciate you squeezing us in for the time. So I wish you all the very best. And if I see you around the bike shed, or I see you on the Bali Rally or anything like that, then I'll come and say hello.
I'll be in the bike shed the day it opens, mate. The day they say it's open, I'm sure we'll catch you in there.
Good stuff. Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Cheers for that.
Cheers.
Bye.